There's no quiz today, although I should have one, huh? Um, so what do we got? Right. I'm not much of a gotcha teacher, though. I'm just trying to bring up the calendar, see what chapter we're on. What was it today? 11 to 10? So yeah, no, it was 11 today, 12 for next class. Um, we're going to start having them again. So just make sure you're reading, okay? And so here's how I want to start today. I went over those your posts, and boy, they were really good. And I want you to just look them over one more time since it was so long ago. So take out your phone or something and go to Canvas and look over those authentic human experience posts. And I'll put them up here too if you just want to look them on because I want to scroll through them again as well. Again, we're just looking over those posts one more time we did last class. Oh, listen, I like this idea of cringe being real. I've never heard that. Like cringe normally like people don't want it, but you're saying that's part of the experience. Can you appreciate that when you do something cringe? Right. That's why I asked the question because that's such a key part is even when you're cringy, like you feel, okay, how do I learn from that or whatever? How do I forgive myself? Try to think of some themes you're seeing here, all right? Think and write down in your notes some themes. Hmm. I'm doing this too, but please put down some words. I want us to share some words here that we think stand out. Yeah. Hmm. Read yours, Andy. That was really yours is really good. Yeah. No. No, we're just looking over these right now, writing some notes of like impressions we have of each other's. Maybe just a few more seconds to finish this up. Just get some. I think they almost all have something similar theme is what I'm seeing. Mm. Francisco, we're looking over the discussion posts from last class and writing down some words that we see as themes throughout. But everybody take a second and share with at least one partner. So I won't get you into groups officially, but just talk to somebody and share what are those themes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I see three things, and you guys add this to me if you would. I see a lot about feelings, emotions, same thing, but also not false or real either way. What would you add that you're seeing there? Yeah,
So unique,
unique. Yeah, good. Yeah, Brody.
how you reflect on something happened.
Right.
That effect.
Yeah, and learning from experience. Right. Yeah, good. Anything else that I missed? Is that what you felt as well? You felt the feelings and you felt the genuine, the realness and the not fake. So my question to you is, does what in your daily life leads you to find these feelings? I think I asked you this last class, right? What is that? What in your, for me, it's being around friends, family, the good and the bad around friends and family, and being active outdoors, and with nature. For me, I didn't see nature in here. But for me, there'd be something about nature and being interacting with the natural environment. Anybody put that in there? Being in the natural environment? That's just my authentic human experience. What did you put down for? So do this, talk to each other for a second. What in your daily life do you do that reflects this authentic human experience? Where are you seeing that in your life? And please talk or else I'll put you in groups. So please talk to each other.
So just
No, Maggie, please talk to each other. You're right there.
Yeah, I feel like it's like.
That was an authentic human interaction right there. No? All right, my next question. So I'm kind of leading to this. Does paid work you have done have all the purpose, meaning, goals, and love that truly enrich your life? Not the money from it, but the feeling that work generates itself. Have any of you had a job that pays you, that gives you all of these feelings? I think there are two of us here.
My new job, yes.
What's your job?
I'm EMT.
Right.
So we're like out, just every day is a different day. And
Yeah.
you're helping, there's sad, there's good, there's bad.
Right,
So much authentic experience.
right,
And yeah, some days I'm like, I can't believe I just got paid to do that today. 'Cause I probably would have did it for free.
right, right.
It's just like so cool, like things we did.
My job, I would say similar, right? I'm here in the moment every day I'm at work and when I'm answering emails and all of that, and it feels real and genuine. And I'm dealing with people who are struggling at times and having to support them and having to kick butt sometimes and just being real and authentic with people. So I feel it in my job. Annie, you have your hand up. Do you feel it in a paid job that you have at this point in your life?
Yeah,
What do you do?
I don't know, trade school, and I'm planning to like be a teacher, maybe on a trade, very, but they are kind of, it is really fulfilling, I'll say, and like, I feel like it's kind of like, obviously it's not being an EMT, but I do see what you say, but I say.
No, I think they're not, I can see that being extremely fulfilling.
But the intensity, I think, is what she and I may, if I can speak for you, maybe, I think we laud, we applaud the intensity of the work, because I don't know if I can maintain my balance, right? And from her look, I don't know if she can, so I think we're applauding the intensity of the authenticity that you deal with, yeah.
For me, like, since I started working with them, it's kind of been like a study of just like a personal study of just like humans.
Right.
You know, like kind of like, I guess, cause I feel like I see so many authentic human experiences when I'm like 5 and 6 year olds, you're watching kids brains beat for. You know, like you're kind of also actively a part of it as like sort of and authority figure. So like, it's definitely really like fulfilling, especially like seeing certain kids like just get better and like grow throughout the
Right.
year, with like behavioral issues and like academic issues.
Absolutely.
Super.
You know, what's interesting that I just thought of in listening to you, and that is that I think the key for us in education, and I'm not sure about, well, no, I think similar with you, is that you don't put everybody in a box. This is a unique person, it's a unique person. Okay, I need to address them in a very unique way. Rather than in education, it's easier to just go, here's the lesson, take it, right? And here regurgitate it back rather than develop that relationship. And do you have that as well with being an EMT, where you've got to really know? Because yes and no, I would imagine.
Yeah, and there's certain calls where you get like with, let's just say, overdoses.
Right.
Super common, you get them, and it's easy to just be like, oh, another overdose, like their fault, another person unconscious,
You're
like,
talking empathy, having
yeah,
empathy.
yes, and so you kind of get in that, it comes to the point where like the firefighters are, they're all just talking like, hey, what'd you do last weekend? Like, there's a person like laying it, but you get so used to it.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, it's just another dude, like.
And that's what we have to guard against in these
Yeah.
jobs, is just seeing people as
Yeah.
an objective, an object, something I've got to get around or deal with so I can get on to my next thing.
Yes.
Who else? There was somebody else who actually had these feelings at work. What do you think, Faith? Okay.
During summertime, I was just working in culture, doing irrigation, all that stuff. They were mostly outside, which I personally really enjoy, and I feel like this like use an
Right.
experience.
Right.
And I feel like I'm also just I don't know, bettering the world and also bettering myself by many things, also doing things for communities.
Yeah, nice, well said. Okay, now the rest of you didn't say yes. And that's kind of the point, right? The point is, and especially when you're looking at an economy in the 1800s and the early 1900s, where people are working in factories and working desk jobs, and their critique is in modern capitalism is especially if you're a factory worker, especially if you're working in an Amazon warehouse, especially if you are the majority of workers in our economy, are you feeling that in your daily work? Are you feeling that authentic human experience? And I don't know if I'm not gauging your eyes right now, but can you see that argument at least? That in an economy like ours, you can't get that. And so the communist or the socialist solution, this is where they kind of lose it, is that they'd say, well, if we all work for each other and we all have a job and we all are integral part of this economy that's not just serving ourselves, but serving others, then we're going to be much happier. But the reality is, what kind of jobs would you be doing? The exact same type of jobs. And so they kind of missed their mark here. But I think they are, as I've said in the past, this class is looking at American capitalism and our economy from a critical perspective, because if we don't look at anything critically, we don't grow, right? So don't take me as not being a patriot, somebody who loves my country, and even a capitalist. But these ways of thinking are ways of looking at, okay, how can we create something better? And so what sort of work would provide this? I'm not sure, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. So I want to get to the next point that they make here, and this, remember, is the Frankfurt School. And one philosopher, you don't have to write a few of these things down. What he would say is this, that when we are at times where we're not able to live that authentic human experience, and we're stuck doing things that we don't want to do, that's when we become really aware of this other world. And so think about this, when you're stuck in class, in this class possibly, or others, when you are not able to live that authentic human experience, where does your mind go? Right? Where's it going? It's going to fantasies and ideas of what you could really be doing, right? Which is because you're being held back from living that authentic human experience. So it's natural to go outside of yourself and start fantasizing about what you could be doing that's more authentic. Eric Fromm, psychoanalyst, says that we're only really alive insofar as we're living out this authentic human experience. And so now a few things to write down. And you don't have to write this. Remember, the convention is when something's read, write it down, at least the bullet point, etc. And so if we're not able to live this authentic human experience, and again, think factory workers, think in the modern day warehouse workers, where you're arrested from really living this authentic experience, then you become detached from yourself, because yourself is really separated from who you really are and what you really want to be. And so you have to detach, because you need a defense mechanism against anxiety. And we're all dealing with anxiety and living in this strange world that we never asked to be a part of. And we create personalities to try to deal with this strange world that we didn't ask to be a part of. And these defense mechanisms, in this case, they say, is that because we can't be our authentic selves, we adopt popular culture as our authentic self. Since work saps our ability to be our real self, the only thing real is what we see outside of ourselves. And so as you write this down, I want you to think about, maybe not yourself, because it's difficult to see in yourself, but do you see others who are super attached to NFL teams, NBA teams, MLB teams, to a certain band, to a certain celebrity, to a certain TV show, to a certain movie, where their life kind of revolves around that? Because none of you put down the 49ers. Watching the 49ers was your authentic human experience. None of you put down going to see a movie or watching your favorite TV show. Now, one of you put down anything about popular culture. In fact, you put down stuff that probably is against popular culture. And so tell me, do you know people who are obsessed with things in popular culture? Give me some examples.
My mom's obsessed with like the Real Housewives series, like she literally talks about them like they're her friends. She doesn't miss, when they come out, like she doesn't miss an episode, it's like. Really, she's like so obsessed.
right?
I mean, like, it's fine to watch it, but like an obsession.
So they would say that's a symptom.
Yeah.
Right? They would say, no offense to your mother,
No.
but that's a symptom of being in a system where you can't live your authentic life out. And so your defense is you adopt housewives of wherever it
Yeah.
might be. What else? Give me more examples, Annie. Yeah.
Cause I feel like it can't be somebody's authentic self, like what they're obsessed with. I feel like, I mean, like, yeah, that might not be like the extent of like, cause when I'm thinking like authentic human experience, I guess I am away from popular culture. But I don't know, I think that for some people, like my boyfriend, like really, really loves say like it's like
Right.
a whole big thing. Yeah, or like one of them, you know, and I, and he's also like, you know, in the subculture of like raping. And,
Right.
but I don't feel like that's him like straying away from his authentic self. And I feel the same way about like, you know, my interests and like some people, right? I feel like in terms of like conspicuous capitalism,
Right.
I think that it's a different thing. You know, some people are obsessed with like the groups or like.
Right.
uh,
And, critiques are really appropriate, right? We need to critique this and then think, where's your evidence, right? And why do you make this assumption? And I think they're making this assumption to try to build an argument against market capitalism. And I grew up in the rave culture back in, Marcuse also said this, that people, because they can't be their authentic self, reorganize themselves in their commodities. They find their souls in their cars. Now, if popular culture didn't hit you, do you see it in people who their things are their authentic self? Yeah, Francisco, what do you see?
My neighbor, yeah, I love them. Like, they don't, I don't know if they still do it, but they would never wash their clothes. They would just buy new clothes.
Wow.
Yeah, he flips cars.
Right.
And, he's a cool guy. He like taught me how to do that too, but they wouldn't wash their clothes. My mom would go and clean the house. I think they would just throw it away or donate it. I don't remember.
So I've got my mountain bike on the back of my car here that's hopefully going to be there at the end of the school day today. It's locked up, so, but I often find myself just looking at it. And I think seeing my authentic self in that, because I love mountain biking but I can see this critique in some of the things that I have, because now I have very few things, but the things I have, it feels like that's me. That bike is me. And that bike, of course, is not me. It's a piece of metal and machinery, right? Do you see this in some people with their cars, with their clothing, with their whatever possessions they have, where their life revolves around these things? And they would say, again, this is a defense. We find ourselves in our things because we can't live this authentic experience in a market economy. And this was written, all of this, you don't have to write that down. This was written before we became a consumerist culture. In the 1940s, we weren't really a consumerist culture. Now we have become one, which would certainly be a symptom that we are not able to live this authentic human experience. And so I already asked you that question. Now, to take me to the last part here, what's your idea of utopia? Write this down. Take a second, just like you did with authentic human experience. What is your idea of utopia? Again, what this class is about is looking at our history, looking at our economic system, and dreaming about what it could be. What would your dream be for a utopian society? Hmm. How do we get there? Is a question that comes to my mind. Maybe answer that. How would we get there? 'Cause I imagine your answers might be something that's not easy to get to.
Think resources.
Yeah. I think a change in psychology too, for me and my idea. When you're done with those, would you share those with at least one person?
Working like drive them to probably go out and then usually choose it so they're not having to work. So they just working for a normal time. Yeah. I don't know, I said they get selling everything. Yeah.
That's what a large part of society is that.
How do we get there? Yeah, right, and who we are, right? Yeah, because when I think of my utopia, it requires a lot of change. And are we capable of that kind of, are human beings naturally jealous?
Yeah, please.
No, does your faith help you be less jealous?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you're a sinner, right? So, but it gives you a pathway to process your jealousy.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for you, I'm just gonna think through.
Yeah.
Helps.
What was your thought on utopia?
I said like working all the time, just to be like,
Okay,
Cozy side neighbor, like, can't.
not too much, so I want to. I like that kind of work.
right,
It's like loving everybody, like helping them. Yeah.
but you call.
Yeah.
Right. Just the second part.
Yeah, but
Most people.
Okay,
like, there's like a utopia, everyone.
yeah, how do we get there? What about you? What's your idea? Drew, sorry.
I feel like if everyone has access to plenty of resources, I feel like that would eliminate
Right.
the issue, because if someone has something that's like better than you, it would not take much to get there.
If all of us had resources, enough resources and unlimited resources, there wouldn't be jealousy.
Are you?
The resources would that. Yeah, I disagree, but I think that's a good point. If we had some kind of thing that would make anything, and if we could all have anything we wanted, there'd be no jealousy. Would there not be jealousy? You had a Ferrari, I had a Ferrari.
Like, if it's a Ferrari, I'd say like something like. Like customized it, and they made it super nice, and they made it like themselves. I think that what kind of right.
Yeah, his Ferrari's better than my Ferrari. I'm jealous of the way he expresses himself well in that Ferrari. Yeah. What do you say with that, Drew?
Like, I would then go to a car wash shop. And just swap it, and she's make it up.
All right, so what's your ideas? Let me bring it back together. What are some of your ideas? Let me hear a whole bunch of them. I hear a world without jealousy, a world with a really good work-life balance, a world where we can have really good relationships with others, a world where there's not a lack of resources from what I've heard on this side. Tell me that side. Please speak up. Don't be shy. There's no wrong answer here. Yeah, Francisco, let's go with you first.
Where we protect kids and us.
Protect the kids at all costs. Yeah. Somebody else, Brody.
One of the things I said was that most of our large problems are taken care of, like climate change and environmental damage and stuff. But we still have some problems to keep our minds active. And that way humanity doesn't just flat out go.
So Utopia is still having some problems to work out.
I think so, because I'm a believer in if all your problems are solved, there's no kind of point in life.
Absolutely. My grandmother told me early on, life is struggle. And that's exactly that, right? You need to struggle. Allison, since I loved your answer with cringe, can you tell me what your utopia is? Tell us.
Like this like weather right now is making very like unmotivated to do stuff. So
Right.
first of all, good weather. Like racism, like you don't like I get like in the script like those discrimination with each other and it's just like a bit much and it's just like keeps people in a box and it's like
Right.
no, I see like no struggle, but I feel like life, like you said, like is struggle, so
Sure.
I don't, you know.
Well, I'm not, my grandmother said that and I've taken it in. I don't know if it's the truth, right? It's a point of view. So interesting, a lot about our human failings is a theme I'm getting here and trying to live our best life. So here's why I asked. Number one, write this down. Utopia in Greek means no place. And what do you think that means? Utopia to us means what? A perfect place. What does it mean in the true Greek? No place. Because what do you think what am I getting at here? Right, it's this dream. Well, it's a dream, right? And so we're trying to aim closer at that dream that is no place because we probably won't get there. And kind of the discussion we were having over here is maybe because we are naturally jealous or Allison naturally put people in boxes. I'm not defending that, believe me, but maybe there is something flawed about us that we're trying to overcome. And now the last point for this Frankfurt School is with all of their Marxist critiques, they came down to, in the end, that managed capitalism was their idea of utopia. Are we living? And last night, so managed capitalism, what we have right now, free markets with regulation, is the best human beings are ever going to get because we have freedom to create that work-life balance, to follow our faiths, to go out and seek out good weather on our vacations and weekends. Francisco, what was yours again? Remember what you said? Richard, your utopia?
Oh, for kids?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a few teachers here. And in managed capitalism, we have all K-8 education that's free. We have police protection. Is it good enough? Absolutely not. Right.
I just feel like, well, we see like, here's school shootings and all this, and it's just kind of like normal now. It's
Right.
weird.
So that's where you're going with that, right?
That's not my only issue. Think about sometimes. I
Yeah.
just think it's weird that it's like normal now.
I think it's horrific that you guys had drills for that in school. Did you have drills? That's horrific. Yeah. That you almost, the drill is to make you get used to something. Right? So I feel you that we kind of institutionalized getting used to something. Allison. Yep. Another human flaw, parents. It's tough, man. There's no manual to be a parent. And then you've got stress as a parent, and then you act like a human and sometimes make mistakes. And boy, if there was like a parenting class that you could take that would make you a perfect parent, I think we could solve so many problems in this world, but I just don't see that happening. So I don't know. Dream past me. Think of something, invent something, please, to solve families. So here's their idea of what utopia is what we have, which is freedom and then the ability to manage it, which brings us now to something that needs to be managed in this chapter, this next chapter, capitalism, tooth and claw. So what they're saying is capitalism is the best, but the nature of this chapter is how it becomes rapacious, how it becomes, if we let it go without regulation, we're just going to be taking advantage of one another. And during this time that this chapter covers, 1865 to 1914, I just want to show you a representation of what happened during this time. And so this is back to our tool Gapminder. And I want to show you those bouncing balls again and just show you, even though we were living, if you read the chapter, in a really corrupt time, you'll see so watch our green dot here. Okay. So here we are. Notice per capita income, $5,270, average lifespan, 39.4 years. And then notice how we're getting richer, a lot richer, and living longer lives. So there's something obviously, and I'll end right about that time frame. There's something obviously revolutionary and really important about capitalism and harnessing people's self-interest, which obviously causes problems when that becomes selfishness. But self-interest and following our incentives leads to, notice how the United States is far out of front of everybody right now, even with the corruption that was happening during this time frame. And so the rest of this presentation is about corruption and plutocracy within our system, something we obviously need to fight against. So the first thing to write down for this chapter, plutocracy and corruption. Do you remember the definition of plutocracy? Pluto, it doesn't have anything to do with the planet. Plutocracy is like a kind of government. So if you don't know, make sure you write this down. Plutocracy is a government run by the wealthy. And so during this time, we certainly had elements of plutocracy in our country. And I'm going to come back to that. So a government system run by the wealthy is the definition. And this was a time when we had robber barons, as we called them. Baron being a royal leader, robber being obviously somebody who stole. And so you have these Carnegies, Mellons, Rockefellers, these great industry giants who were captains of industry, but also operating in a very unethical way, paying others not to compete. What this article is about here, where I was going to show you another article, but I figured one article was good enough. We have, among all industries that you wouldn't want to see this, I would think, would be in healthcare. And in healthcare around this country, we have allowed a number of companies, all of their competitors in one region. And so you have one hospital group that is a profit-making hospital group for people who live in that region, no competition. And in this article that I'm not providing you today, I think it's available online in our learning module. There's a comparison of somebody who lives in Florida and a county next to where there's a monopolized healthcare system. And I don't know if any of you had to get an MRI, I hope not. But usually when something's relatively bad, you have to get an MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. Yeah. To look inside your body and see what's going on. And And normally in one county in Florida, this article talks about, it's $500. But in the county where they did monopolize this hospital system, it was $10,000. And there's absolutely no reason why it should be $10,000 other than that industry had been monopolized and it was allowed to have that kind of market concentration. And so now just back to the history. So after the Civil War, which I'm not spending much time on, obviously, there it was. The federal government was not seen as a regulator of capitalism. So this idea in the Frankfurt School that indeed capitalism is a way to achieve the best outcomes for people. I just listened to something interesting the other day about John Stuart Mill and a couple of other philosophers who were called utilitarians. And they believe the best system would be a system that creates the most good for the most people. Does that make some sense? The most good for the most people. But the problem with that is that if you're measuring the most good for the most people, which economics tries to do, you're measuring in aggregate, you're measuring in big groupings. And so if one group does really, really well, and one group does poorly, on average, everyone does really well. And so the idea is that the way capitalism has been managed is at times we're just managing for the most good without understanding how it might affect one marginalized group. Now, this also was a time when governments were rife, meaning full of corruption. This was a time, if you read the chapter, where bribery was voted to be legal in the state of New York. Our current head of ICE was caught by the FBI receiving $50,000 in a paper bag. That is a true story. They don't deny it, but they didn't prosecute him. As I said, Donald Trump made 24 million. His organization made 24 million last year. This year, his president made 820 something million. You tell me if that's corruption. Are we any better today with that?
Gonna give us 2,000.
He truthed that he's not going to, which then gives you another thing. He talks a lot and it's a lot of it's not true. We took SNAP benefits away from people anyhow. So Trump is against, and let me now turn this a little bit. The foreign FCPA is the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. This is a law that says we cannot bribe people overseas when we conduct business. And business is done in many countries only through bribes. And Donald Trump believes that we should get rid of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and allow businesses to bribe officials overseas to buy things from our companies. What's more important to us? Commerce? Or do we believe we should have some moral high ground? What do you think? Because he is right. Donald Trump is right. We lose business because we don't allow our businesses to bribe other countries' officials. So I'll give you an example. When I was working from the State Department over in Saudi Arabia, we were listening. So we listened to everything around the world. The National Security Agency, or the No Such Agency, as the joke is, listens to everything around the world, our friends and our foes. And it was caught that some French executives for Airbus, their big airplane company, had bribed Saudi Arabian officials to buy Airbus planes for their national airline. Now, in the United States, we have Boeing. Boeing and Airbus are the big airline manufacturer, or the big aircraft manufacturing companies that make commercial aircraft. So what the Saudis were doing was getting a bribe from the French to buy the French European jet, and now ours. What did our intelligence agencies do? We shared that information with the Saudi officials. The Saudi officials, not the ones who got bribed, but the ones who are their bosses. What happened? Do you have any idea what happened to those officials who got the bribes? You know, Saudi law, off with their heads. They all were executed. Now, we did that rather than get rid of our Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Should we get rid of it? Because we can get more business, we can sell more jet engines, we can sell more jets, we can sell more big capital equipment if we allow ourselves to bribe foreign officials, but that is against federal law. What do you think? Matt, what do you think, being an investor?
Oh, that's tough. It's like two round holes.
Right?
I mean, I haven't thought about all
Sure.
on the bribe side. I mean,
I believe we stand for something in this country, and I think it'd be a terrible idea. That's just my belief. I believe we should stand on the quality of our products and who we are as a people rather than who has the most money. I don't want to be like the French, be like Americans in the best way possible. And
Well, I just think that it's not, sustainable.
Hmm.
I don't think practices like that are sustainable. I think that in the end, like, you know, things tend to come out in the wash and things tend to fall apart, British as fan. And I just think like, you know, it's interesting, you just said like, stand on like the American values and principles. And I was kind of thinking along that grain of just like, are we making a world for tomorrow? Like, you know, kind of like we're always like, you know, the future
Right.
of our country, like.
is that creating a utopia? Is
Yeah,
that creating
no,
that?
not exactly, not at all, that's not, like, I feel like right now, a lot of people are graduating, I've heard that it feels like they're not walking into the fair, you know, there's so much corruption.
Let me drill down on one of your comments that it all come out in the wash. If we bribe to get our stuff sold, how will that come out in the wash? If our stuff is sold because we paid a bribe, what does that mean in the future about our products? If we don't pay bribes, what do we need, our products need to be to win business? Yeah,
better.
yeah, better. And if we pay bribes to get business, what's going to happen to that quality? Right? Is there going to be that incentive to have the best quality? And so there, I think is a rubber meets the road finance answer there is in the long run, that would, you'd lose one of those incentives to create the greatest product. And in the long run, it would come out in the wash. I think that's a good way of putting it. And so lastly here, on this topic, the New York Stock Exchange decided to regulate itself because the government at this time was too corrupt to act. We have no doubt taken huge strides with corruption in between now and then, although, you know, from all of our discussions of what utopia might be, I think we all still see some dirtier sides of the human spirit that tend to corruption. Which brings me to the idea of wealth and ethics. Does having wealth change your ethical framework? Imagine yourself super, super wealthy. Would you act the same way? I happen to have a family member who became very, very wealthy and changed immensely and not for the good. I've seen that. Now, what does this mean if wealth negatively affects us? So where I live now, down in Marin County, it's a wealthy area. People butt in front of each other in line. The nicer cars are always the rudest cars. I kind of see something different than Chico down there, where I see certainly people who are wealthier, and I certainly see a sense of entitlement. So I don't think any of us are magnificently wealthy in this room, else we wouldn't be here maybe. Imagine feeling that wealth and kind of this idea, wait, I got this, I somehow earned this, and what that might do to how you treat others and how you see yourself. And so, I don't think I've shown you a video before. I want to show you something that documents some evidence of wealth and unethical behavior. Let me just bring up the right screen.
California, you're supposed to stop.
Okay, this is from two professors at UC Berkeley on wealth and unethical behavior. And I'll make sure, I think, could you hear that? Yeah.
In California, you're supposed to stop for a pedestrian at a crosswalk. And in a
Here.
recent study, some 90% of drivers did, except for those driving luxury cars, like this BMW. They were almost as likely to run the intersection as wait for the person to cross the street. Drivers of those BMWs, those Porsches, those Mercedes were anywhere from 3 to 4 times more likely to break the law than drivers of less expensive, low status cars. In a country more and more polarized by inequality, UCal Berkeley's Paul Piff led a series of startling studies showing an apparent link between wealth and, well, unseemly behavior.
Oh, by the way, there's candy there. It's actually for children for another study, but you're welcome to take a few pieces if you want to. Thank you.
That's the script an experimenter recited to every subject. And the results? Wealthier participants took 2 times as much candy from children as did poor participants. Another experiment tested honesty in reporting dice scores when cash was on the line. People all the way at the top who made $150,000, $200,000 a year were actually cheating 4 times as much as someone all the way at the bottom who made under $15,000 a year just to win credits for a $50 cash prize. So, experimental evidence that rich people are more likely to break the law while driving, help themselves to candy meant for children, cheat in a game of chance. Also, to lie during negotiations and endorse unethical behavior, including stealing at work. The academic paper that resulted made headlines everywhere. The Wall Street Journal article leading with the question, "Ready the pitchforks?"
It is very clear that this study of social class touched a nerve.
Psychology professor Dacher Keltner is Paul Piff's boss and co-author.
We publish these studies in relatively obscure scientific journals, and literally the next day we're getting hundreds of emails from around the world, and a lot quite hostile.
I've gotten a lot of vitriol and hate mail from people calling me out for junk science and having a liberal agenda. Hey, but wait, didn't those who complained have a point? That the research was done at a famously, some might say infamously, liberal university. Hey, they're at Berkeley. What other results did you expect them to get? I regularly hear the Berkeley idiot scientist who's finding what they expect to find. Let me tell you, we did not expect to find this. Our findings apply to both liberals and conservatives. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're wealthy, you're more likely to show these patterns of results. Results consistent across 30 studies he's run on thousands of people all over the United States. So what is it about wealth that might make people behave differently? What are we doing here? We're playing a game of Monopoly that's rigged. This game is typical of another kind of experiment Piff likes to run. Instead of studying actual rich people, Piff gets subjects to feel rich in the lab. The designated Monopoly money bags starts with a few legs up. $2,000 versus the poor man's $1,000. An upscale playing piece, the rolls, versus an old shoe. The right to toss 2 dice instead of just 1. 2, I've got snake eyes, meaning I assign the role of rich person, get an extra turn. But I roll again because I've got, because you rolled doubles. 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's Tennessee Avenue, and of course I'll buy that. Meanwhile, poor Paul Piff. I only get to roll 1 die, and as it says here, when I pass go, I collect a lower salary. I collect $100. Here's your 1 die. Great, thanks so much. I can't roll doubles. I don't get opportunities to move very far along the board. Piff has run this experiment with hundreds of people on the Berkeley campus. The rich players are determined randomly by coin toss, the game rigged so they cannot lose. And yet, says Piff, despite their presumably liberal bent going in, when we asked them afterwards, how much do you feel like you deserved to win the game? The rich people felt entitled. They felt like they deserved to win the game. And that's a really incredible insight into what the mind does to make sense of advantage or disadvantage. So even though a subject like myself is just play acting, you consistently find that I begin to attribute success to myself, even though it's a coin flip that got me on this side of the board as opposed to that. You, like a real rich person, start to attribute success to your own individual skills and talents, and you become less attuned to all of the other things that contributed to you being in the position that you're in.
How's the American dream achieved?
Piff is part of a team headed by Dacher Keltner that studies the psychological effects of both absolute and relative poverty and wealth.
can also ask, do people believe in this dream?
What they're studying is economic inequality, which, as our viewers probably know, is as high as it's been in almost a century in this country.
There are new data coming out on a daily basis from top laboratories showing no matter how you look at it, the effects of inequality are pernicious upon things like bullying on school playgrounds, the quality of your physical health, how you handle disease.
What's somewhat surprising, says Keltner, is that even the haves suffer.
One of the things that wealth and money does is it comes with a set of values and if you want a deeper ideology, and one of them is generosity is for suckers, right? And it's greed is good. But it turns out there are a lot of new data that show if you're generous and charitable and altruistic, you'll live longer, you'll feel more fulfilled, you'll feel more expressive of who you are as a person. You probably will feel more control and freedom in your life.
Of course, there are plenty of wildly generous rich folks. Just look at the growing list of billionaires who've pledged to give the bulk of their fortunes to charity.
And 6, I got a doubles again.
But statistically speaking, there's a significant tendency to look out for number 1 if you're at the top.
What do I got?
Oh, you got a get out of jail free card.
Oh, excellent. That's very nice. Although I could probably, given the fact that I'm the rich person, get bailed out.
You could.
And as Piff observed when he ran this experiment with hundreds of doggedly friendly Berkeley types, those in the role of top dog began to bark like one.
And so I get the $200.
You get $200.
Well, give me 140 because I'm going to buy Mediterranean.
Okay, done. Now listen to the way that you just spoke to me. It's very directive, almost like a demand. But we found consistently with people who were the rich players that they actually started to become, in their behavior, as if they were like rich people in real life. They were more likely to eat from a bowl of pretzels that we positioned off to the side. They ate with their mouths full, so they were a little ruder in their behavior to the other person.
While I was thanking God no pretzels were present, Piff continued. Those arbitrarily assigned the role of low dog became more nearly man's best friend.
If I take someone who's rich and make them feel psychologically a little less well off, they become way more generous, way more charitable, way more likely to offer help to another person.
So when people are playing this Monopoly game and they're in the poor person role that you're playing, they, if they were rich in real life, become more understanding, more compassionate?
Not just in this game of Monopoly, but in a whole bunch of other experiments that we've run where we make rich people feel poor or poor people feel rich. You find the same kinds of differences.
Differences that could conceivably help people understand their subconscious biases and perhaps even moderate the costly effects of economic inequality. But until that happens, we'd suggest you look both ways before crossing.
So I posted this study and it goes through tons of different exercises that he did with students and other people that show this link, that when somebody is made to feel rich, they act a certain way, which is a little more demanding, a little more rude, a little demeaning to the other person who's poor. And the same thing when they make a real rich person poor, there's a change in behavior. So there's something that happens psychologically. Now, let's say you run an American company. And so take this out here, the article that I have for you. And so this relates in the sense to how much you and I have to pay for basic things that in other countries where there is more regulation of capitalism, these costs are a lot lower. So if you write down one, just before you start this, write down one phrase, regulatory capture. I have questions at the end I want you to answer. So we started with Frankfurt School and then came down to what's their idea of utopia, and that is managed capitalism. And so managed capitalism is to have some kind of regulatory structure. Well, if you are a company and you are regulated under that structure, and you are driven by the profit motive, and you are required to maximize shareholder value, if you run a company, that's what you're required to do. You need to try to maximize revenue and minimize costs. And one of your costs is dealing with the government's regulatory attempts on you. And those regulatory attempts are to help society, but they're gonna harm your profitability. And so you look for ways to, unfortunately, interfere in the regulatory process. So let's say, Francisco, you just looked at me, so you're now designated my regulator. And Francisco has been really nice to me as a regulator. In fact, anything I ever wanted him to pass, allow me to charge a higher price or have less safety regulations, he voted with me. The rest of you, the hell with you. You all voted to do the right thing for society. So you know what I do when Francisco retires off the regulatory board? I hire him on a no work contract. I pay him $200,000 a year to do nothing. What message would I just send to everyone else here in this room? Huh?
Worthless.
Well, no, think what you could get. He did everything I wanted him to do.
We basically do whatever you ask.
Would all of you do that? I hope not. Everyone would do that? But that's the idea behind regulatory capture, that the company or the industry that is supposed to be regulated looks for ways to interfere in that regulatory process. And so now if you would, read this article around our regulatory process and the costs we have to pay. By the way, this article is about 5 years old, so you can probably add 25% to any amounts that we have to pay more than Europe. I want you to answer a question when you're done here, and I'm thinking of a different one, other than what I've had right there. Oh, and we don't have time. Dude, let me end with a statement here then. So are we managing capitalism to create that utopia, given what you just read? Is capitalism being managed sufficiently? What could be done? What are we not doing? Right, so we're allowing big mergers consistently. Are we breaking up monopolies? Not as much as other countries. So there is, I would say, a utopian vision of managed capitalism, and it would be more in the European bent, where there is a little bit more regulation around mergers. But also, notice there's also a conservative side of getting government out of the way of startups. So startups could come in and act as some competition to bring down prices for these things. Everybody have a great one. See you next time.